Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the Christmas break. And because we are on the Christmas break, we are digging into the archives and showcasing some of our favorite interviews from the past year. This one was with Sandeep Todi. He is the co-founder of Truly Financial. This business is totally upending the financial industry here in Canada. And the interview itself was really fascinating. Now, one of the things that Sandeep was sharing with me was just how in the early days, if he were to give any advice to early stage entrepreneurs, he said, take disproportionate risks because you don't have very much to lose in those early stages. And I couldn't agree more with him. I talk about this in a lot of our other interviews. It's just really important to realize that as you're younger and when you're in the earlier stages of your businesses, that you can take those risks that you can't take as easily later on. So definitely take advantage of that and listen to the rest of the interview. Check it out. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, we're going to be talking about finances and banking, actually, for businesses, a really unique and new way of doing it for small businesses. And with me today is Sandeep Todi. He is the co-founder and chief business officer over at Truly Financial. Welcome to the show, Sandeep.
Hey, I'm delighted to be here and for having the opportunity to tell you about my journey and what we do at Truly Financial.
So we'll get into all of that in a minute. But first off, I want to ask you a question, Sandeep. So what should every entrepreneur know as they go down this entrepreneurial journey that you've been on and all of our listeners have as well?
That's a great question. There are a couple of things, and I just narrate this from my own experience. The first thing that comes to my mind is, there's always a way out of a difficult situation. And the reason I say that is, I can't count how many times I faced problems which on the face of it sound really hard. Yeah. And the thing is, you cannot solve everything or make the problems go away. But if you think about the problems from different perspectives, and it's very important to wear different hats, for example, if you're dealing with a customer problem, wear the customer's hat and see how that looks like. Yeah. And I found 9 times out of 10, I'm just saying 9 because, I can't say 10 out of 10, you find a different way to deal with that problem compared to what you thought when you kind of, when it hit you in the beginning and you thought it's like, I don't know how to solve this. So there's always a way out. You just need to be creative and also look at it from different perspectives, not just your own perspective. Yeah. That's the one thing I think is, like above everything else. The second thing I would say from an entrepreneurial journey point of view, this applies more if you've got maybe a small team, could be just 2 people, you're just starting out. The thing is, as an entrepreneur, you've taken that step. So you already have that DNA to think that you can solve, the problems in the best possible manner. But why did you bring on a team? You brought the team on so that they could be more than your right and your left hand. So it's important to challenge the team and let them think for you instead of kind of just telling them what to do, because then you have a bunch of doers, you don't have a bunch of thinkers. So that's the second thing I would say. Just challenge your team and see. You'll be surprised what they can come up with. Yeah. The third thing is kind of as you progress on the journey. This is now, imagining you've got customers, they're moderately happy with what you're selling to them. So it's important to really talk to customers, and, you will come back with insights, which you could spend a ton of money on market research or trying to find new customers, but your existing customers will tell you stuff that you didn't know. And that will lead you to things which, maybe help you improve the product or discover a new opportunity, and do those things which ultimately you want to grow the business for.
I love it. Yeah, all 3 are really great pieces of advice. And that first one, I really appreciated what you were saying there in terms of just there's always a way to kind of figure it out. There's another angle, another perspective that you can apply to it, and that's something that I've said for many years. Is everything's figure outable? I don't think that's a word, but everything you can find a solution for. It's just a matter of really thinking about it, and if you are empowering the team, like you said, and really turning them into thinkers, well, collectively, yeah, the team is going to be able to get past that rough spot, whatever that rough spot is. So thank you for those pieces of advice. So now I really want you to talk to me a little bit about Truly Financial. What is it that you guys do over there? What problems do you solve?
So, Truly Financial, we are an online digital bank built exclusively for smaller businesses, which helps them grow globally. Now, what I mean by that is, take an example of a small manufacturing company or an e-commerce seller. Back in the day, you had to make maybe, one wire payment, to a supplier in China once a month. You had maybe like, a few customers across the border. So you would ask them to send you money and get a wire payment. Today, these businesses are really the foundation of the economy. If you talk about like a digital agency, you talk about e-commerce, you talk about a startup, and these businesses need global banking, but try getting that from your regular brick and mortar bank. It's no secret, right? You keep running around, you just can't get the job done. Now, as a result, most small businesses, they've ended up using their main bank and a few other services that have been kind of patched together to help run the business. Now, this was okay if you needed to do it once or twice a month, but this is not okay if you need to do it every single day of the week. Mm-hmm. So what we are doing for these businesses is giving them access to local and international banking with a single bank account so that they can work with their customers across any country, their suppliers, payment for, let's say, online services, or even buying stuff off Amazon or paying for your website hosting. All of this can be done with Truly Financial without them having to run pillar to post, from one bank to the other.
I love it. Like, this is exactly the solution that a company like mine needs, because we have the problem that you've been just describing there, in terms of we have clients south of the border. So I'm in Canada, so we have a lot of clients in the US, some abroad, depending on what projects are on the go. And then we have employees actually, and contractors and freelancers all around the world. Actually, our core group of people are here in Canada, and Edmonton in particular. But we do have people, especially nowadays with this, work from home environment that we find ourselves in. We can hire the right talent anywhere. And so we found ourselves with, having to run payroll and pay people in South America, South Africa, the Philippines, and a whole pile of other places. So it has been a problem for us. So we use the traditional bank here, but the wire transfer fees are astronomical. so we and just a pain too, actually. And so we then use some other services like Wise and PayPal and Payoneer, and then we do different things from a collection standpoint too, where we're bringing in money through Stripe in some instances, and PayPal, and then wire transfers and so on. So this consolidation of everything that a small business needs in a modern, new economy really must speak to a lot of businesses.
Yeah, I mean, the words you've been speaking, that just kind of sounds like music to us, because that's exactly the kind of problem that 22 million small businesses across North America, which is like 2 million businesses in Canada and 20 million businesses in the US. These are official figures. In our estimate, the unofficial number is closer to 35 or maybe 40 million.
Wow.
Count the number of businesses that are not run as a formal business. Now, imagine, you mentioned a few things about like receiving money from Stripe, having to pay somebody online, and then you've got freelancers, and you make wire transfers. And like, a business owner's job is not to try and figure out, how do I string all these things together? I'm invoicing a customer, and that money is coming through Stripe. So first, Stripe holds that money for a few days. And then I say, okay, when it crosses the threshold, you can send that money back to my bank. let's say it's TD Bank for you, and then out of that money you need to pay a developer halfway across the world. So you use another service which will need for money to be moved from your large brick and mortar bank account to that other service, and then you have to figure out whether that other service is economical and how long they take, and like all of this stuff. Like, come on, like you've got enough on your plate just trying to figure out where to get your next customer from and how to keep them happy, and how to grow the business. How to run the banking efficiently was not what you signed up for.
No, well, and the fees as well. It all starts adding up, right? Because everybody's taking a little piece of the pie.
And it's so easy, it's almost invisible, because in financial services and banking, everyone takes a small sliver of the money that you're supposed to be getting. That's coming out of your revenue. You don't realize that at the moment because you just need access to the money. But end of the month, you just try kind of figuring out where all of that went. First, it's hard to figure out because it's all split into small pockets, and then the biggest rub is that you don't have a choice. Most small businesses don't have a choice, and so therefore they're taken for a ride. Right? We are here to change all of that, and I'm not here to sell what we do, but this is the problem. And whenever I hear about this problem, I just get so worked up that why is this situation like this? This is 2022, but the reality is it's becoming more and more fragmented, because you've got newer services getting launched every single day, right? I don't know how many neobanks are there in North America today. Everybody does one thing really well, but can you imagine a situation where like a couple of years down the line you're using 10 different banks and 20 different services? That's not scalable. That's not the way to run things and grow the business. If anything, banking and finances should become simpler, not more complicated. But it's been going in the wrong direction for just too long.
Yeah. And I mean, there's been a lot of investment in fintech recently in the last probably 5 years or so. I've noticed a lot of startups coming, to market in that space.
Yes.
And so how long have you guys been at this then? Is it something relatively new, or have you been doing this for a while?
This whole idea of Truly Financial as an all-in-one banking service, this was conceptualized. Actually, it sounds kind of cliched, but this was conceptualized in the middle of the top of the pandemic situation.
Okay.
So it was in mid 2020 that I and my co-founder, we started kind of thinking about this problem and started building for it. We actually launched last year, so it's been just over a year now. The insight that we got into this problem was built on our previous experience, where my other product is a B2B payments product. It just does payments, and that was designed and built for Canada. So on the back of that experience, we figured out that there's more, and we cannot just make incremental improvements to the experience that small businesses have. So we did a complete, I would say, I won't call it like a pivot, but we did a completely new product and platform, which was built and kind of from the ground up, integrating with banks in the US, banks in Canada, banks in other countries, payment processors, card issuing and all of that, so that we could build this this vision of all-in-one banking without being constrained by anything that we've done in the past. So built on an experience of almost 5 years, but yes, this product is just about a year old.
Yeah. And so the model for you, is it similar to other financial institutions where they're taking a percentage of the transaction then? Is that how your fee structure is?
We've actually thought about that a lot, and we decided early on that we are going to keep our model very simple and no hidden costs around it at all. So the Truly Financial account is, we have two types of pricing plans. The first one is completely free. You don't pay a monthly fee at all. The second one, which we call the preferred plan, is where there is a $25 monthly fee. The advantage of the preferred plan is that you get unlimited wire payments. You don't pay a fee on any of your incoming or outgoing payments and all of that, right? apart from that difference, there is no other difference. We believe that every small business owner has to be treated equal, and there is no like platinum customer and gold customer and silver customer. We treat everybody equally. The only difference is there in terms of pricing for the services that you pay. So that's kind of what we do. In terms of revenue, we don't charge transaction processing fees at all. So if you're sending a wire within Canada, within the US, there is no fee. We also provide multi-currency accounts, so you could send and receive wires in different currencies. When customers do that, we earn a certain amount in terms of revenue on the currency conversion, which incidentally is much lower than what the larger banks would charge you. So we keep that fairly small and transparent. And then of course we have our customers who are using Visa cards, both in the US and Canada, and also outside North America. And so we earn a certain revenue on the Visa card spend as well.
Interesting. And so basically, if I were to use your service, then I would be receiving my funds into my Truly Financial account. So like when I'm invoicing clients, they're paying me, that's getting deposited into those accounts or transferred in, or however it's going to happen. And then I'm paying out from that same account, and I can be paying out in multiple currencies then. And you're doing everything behind the scenes to make all those transactions happen at very low transaction fees. Then it sounds like if and in some cases no transaction fees.
That's correct. There is actually no transaction fee, whether you're paying locally to the person supplier in Canada or in the US. There is no transaction fee. We deposit money directly through EFT or ACH, which is pretty fast and low cost. Low cost for us, we don't charge a fee to the customer. And you're right, for example, for businesses in the US, they have a local US checking account with a local US routing number. Businesses in Canada, they get a Canadian bank account with a Canadian transit code. Canadian businesses also get a US bank account with a US routing number. So, for example, if you invoice a customer in the US, they can deposit funds directly into your US bank account without having to wire the money to your Canadian US dollar account.
Yeah. That sounds perfect. That's exactly what we need. Yeah.
And then, we have some customers who also use multi-currency accounts. So that includes euros and British pounds. So we have those accounts as well. It's more useful for customers who are selling into those geographies or who got e-commerce stores in those geographies. So it's very useful for those customers.
Yeah.
The cool thing is, once you have your money in the US dollar account, you can actually transfer that to Canadian dollars within seconds, right? And you pay a very, very small cost compared to what you would have ended up paying if you went to, let's say, one of the larger banks.
Yeah, it's really interesting just the way that things are evolving. Now, I would think that this has to be an industry that would be very difficult to break into and to be kind of upending all the traditional practices of the banks and stuff, because it's so institutionalized. Is that the case, or have things changed enough with cryptocurrency and everything else that's really shifting the landscape in fintech that it's not that difficult now for a startup like yours to begin in this space?
I would put it like this. There's something called soft fintech, and then there's something called hard fintech. So what I mean by that is, soft fintech deals more with, dealing with customers' data, like helping them figure out how to use their money better and stuff like that, right? So that is kind of soft fintech. You're not really dealing with money physically, right? Mm-hmm. It's not moving through your systems and processes. And then there's hard fintech, which is what we do. And when I'm saying soft and hard, it doesn't indicate the level of difficulty. It's just that the term about not handling hard money versus like handling like soft finances. So when it comes to hard fintech, there is a lot of regulation. We deal with that every day. So there's stuff like local compliance laws, which are specific to each country. So the United States has got a different set of federal and state level laws. In Canada, there's a different set of laws which are there. So we have to make sure that we are complying with regulation in whichever geography that we are operating in. Uh, on the other hand, when you do hard fintech, you have to deal and work with the banks. We have to work with local banks in every country. It's a tricky thing. It's not the easiest thing because a lot of banks who have the services and the technology, or not the technology, the products that you want to use, they still are working with old technology. So for a company like ours, where we depend a lot on automation and advanced technology, it's really hard for us to work with some of the larger banks because they don't actually have advanced technology. They've got great, robust systems, but it's not advanced. So we have to work with these different banks, and also kind of comply to the bank's own requirements. So it's a complex web of putting this thing together. And I wouldn't say by any means what we've been able to achieve in the last couple of years has been easy. It's been a steep hill to climb.
And that also insulates you from competition too, to a degree, right? Because the barrier to entry is a lot higher for your industry than maybe some other industries, which is also a nice thing too. That's a double-edged sword, I guess you could say.
Certainly, and this moat which is there has got multiple legs. One is being able to understand how to be compliant in each country. The second is have successful banking relationships. That's a really hard nut to crack. And the third part, which I think this is where we come in, is being able to understand the technology landscape and build everything around making that service integrated and the seamless experience that you want to give to your customers.
Yeah. So I would imagine once you're talking to businesses and they get what you're doing and the problems that you're solving for them, the probably the first question or objection that they might have is probably around just the security of the funds, right? Because it's well, who is this Sandeep guy who is going to be holding all my money? So how do you guys overcome that challenge as a new upstart in an industry like this?
That's a great question, because again, I mentioned about smaller businesses. They're the segment of the economy which has been largely underserved. So it's not surprising that they would be skeptical about, hey, what's this new financial service? How do we trust them? So we kind of really deal with that at multiple levels. One is we work with some of the best banks wherever we are. So essentially what that means is that, when we are dealing with customers' money, ultimately the funds are with one of those banks, right? The funds are not technically with us in that sense. Secondly, the banks that we work with, they have their own requirements in terms of, the whole process of how we manage the payments and the settlements, and, how do we, for example, I mentioned about, ACH, wires, and there's, the Visa cards. Now, all of this is brought together through very tight integrations that we have with all of our different underlying service providers, right? And each service provider has their own, I would say, their own kind of leverage on how they provide the service to us, right? So we are required to comply with all of their requirements, which automatically makes the service kind of robust, and the funds are secured with each of the underlying banks or services that we're using. Second thing is we're a licensed company, so it's not just left to the banks. We are registered with regulators in both US and Canada, which means that we comply with the requirements that the regulators have for any financial service to be offered in these countries. And when we're saying we are registered with the regulators, it also means ultimately we also get audited, up to the standards that the regulators require us to be.
I see. So yeah, so there's a lot of fail safes along the way, and obviously you guys have to be doing all the right things in order to keep your license. Yeah,
exactly. And then there's also the technology part of it, right? So how do you ensure that your account is not hacked, right? How do you ensure that the person who's actually using the account is authorized? So we have a lot of safeguards built around that as well.
Yeah. So what's the next steps then for Truly Financial? Are you, I didn't see anything about Bitcoin on your website. So is that an area that you're going to explore at some point as well?
Well, I think cryptocurrency and Bitcoin tend to be topics that I cannot escape much as I would like to. Uh, so here's the thing. I think, okay, I'll go out on a limb. Uh, I think cryptocurrency is a misnomer when you start using the word currency along with crypto.
Okay.
We look at crypto as a very valuable asset. It could be an asset just like stocks that you own, for example. However, and the only difference is here, or rather the big difference is that they're more liquid, they're tradable compared to stocks, right? And so is there a future for cryptocurrency, in banking and payments, especially when it comes to like mainstream businesses? Yes, I think there is. Is it going to be anything that we see today? I think that's going to shift a lot. If you kind of look globally, it's not just in the US and Canada. Banks and central banks, by that I mean the Fed, they're taking a very close and hard look at, how crypto is growing, and what are the pros and cons of having crypto as a mainstream value of exchange. And I'm choosing those words deliberately. I'm not saying as a main currency, but as a value of exchange. If something is legitimate, and I'm not trying to do, let's say, money laundering or something of that kind, which is shady, there's no reason for any government or the regulators not to allow that to happen. Unfortunately, most of the stories and incidents that we hear about today, they border more on the negative side than the positive side. So when it really comes to businesses, and I say businesses because our focus is on business banking, I think there is a very big and definite role for crypto assets to be played, for businesses, and it can really change the game significantly, especially when you talk about cross-border payments. I would still say we are maybe a few years away from that becoming mainstream.
Yeah, it's something that do you think is inevitable, though, that it is around the corner?
Well, I think it will have its own place. Governments are not saying no to it, but what they're saying is, maybe we need to take a different approach to it. So, for example, whether crypto makes it to mainstream or not, one thing is for sure: government-backed digital currency, or CBDC, central bank digital currency as it's known. So CBDCs are definitely going to be there, sooner than we know. They might start in a small way. Maybe you can just pay for your coffee or for that Uber ride through that, because just like anything new, the government would want to try it out with smaller value payments before it kind of becomes larger. And that's really to do with making sure that individuals and businesses are using crypto assets or crypto exchanges to do legitimate business, and they're not doing stuff that might be harmful to society or to evade taxes and stuff like that. So when all of that infrastructure and the mechanism for that comes in play, that's when I think crypto will become mainstream. But before that, I'm pretty sure we are going to see CBDCs in different forms, across different countries, making their way into yours and my wallet sooner than later.
Yeah. I think you're right. All the central banks seem to be really focused on trying to jump into that game right now and figure out how they can make it work. Right.
It's only natural because hey, it's not very far back that we only had paper currency.
Yeah.
That gave way to checks, that gave way to cards, and now cards are going to give way to digital currencies. So I think it's a natural progression.
So I'm curious now, just to get a sense as to your entrepreneurial journey, what you maybe would have advised a younger Sandeep who is starting down this path. So I know that you said Truly Financial, you guys created that at the peak of the pandemic, but you've been at this financial services side of the game here for over 5 years, I think you said. So if you were to, pen yourself a letter and be able to send that letter back in time to you at the beginning of your journey, what would be in that letter? What would you say, or what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, that's a question which can have many different answers. I think like going back to the very early days, I would say it's it's important to take disproportionate risks when you're starting off. And the reason I say that is you've got very little to lose, you know, uh, and that's really kind of it's almost like, what's the term for it? When the rocket takes off, what do they call it? The takeoff inertia.
Yeah.
So you achieve certain escape velocity. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Escape velocity, right? You can only achieve escape velocity when you've got that extra thrust power. Otherwise, you'll be trying very hard. You'll be burning all your engines. You'll be out of fuel before you know it, because you were hesitant to press that one extra button, which will give you that escape velocity. So that's kind of the key, I think, when you're starting off. And I would say, going back to my journey when I started, so this is not my first rodeo, and I say that in a humble sense. I've done other ventures earlier, and when I think back about them, I think for every single one of them, they happened when I said, I'm going to jump and there's no parachute, right? So kind of just, I don't know why I'm just thinking of all of these like flying metaphors as parachute, but I think that's what it is. You have to be able to summon the courage to say, I'm going to do this no matter what. And that's what I try and tell my kids. Say, you want to take a risk, go ahead and do that. I was speaking to my daughter just today morning, and she's a sweet little girl, but she always feels sometimes hesitant to do certain things. And it just so happens that the pep talk that I was giving her, of late, in the last, I would say, 1 month, she did 2 different things on both occasions. She was completely not expecting a positive outcome, but she was successful. And then today morning, she came to me and she was smiling like, year to year. And I said, you got something to tell me, right? So she was saying, oh, that thing that worked. I said, okay, great. And, it worked because you tried, right? I mean, the thing is, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, right?
Yeah.
You just got to be so confident about taking the shots that, there's nothing else that crosses your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that I like to say too, when I'm talking to younger entrepreneurs or people who are thinking about venturing into, some sort of entrepreneurial journey, is that's the best time in their life to ever be able to do that. Like you said, in terms of taking that risk, you have so little to lose when you're younger. You don't have the family and the house and the mortgage and all of that kind of stuff that you have to, make sure that you have some sort of stability for. And so take the risks when you're young disproportionately, I think is a really good advice. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would actually add, even when you're not so young, whenever you decide to start a new venture, right? Those early days of that venture is when you have to take those disproportionate risks.
Yeah.
Because for that venture, there's very little downside. For you, maybe depending on your personal situation, there might be, but for the venture, there's very little downside. So if you do not take those disproportionate risks, you are not going to achieve escape velocity.
Yeah.
You might be losing, you might be drifting. That's fine. You won't drown, but you won't reach escape velocity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great advice. Well, thank you so much, Sandeep. I really appreciate you taking the time today to describe to us what your business is all about. I know there's a ton of people who are going to be watching this and listening to it in the podcast format. This is going to be a solution that they're going to be excited about exploring. And so if they did want to reach out to you, what's the best way of finding out more about Truly Financial and yourself?
Hey, Truly Financial, just go to our website, trulyfinancial.com. Everything that you would want to know is available there. And, if there's questions that you have, you can just contact us through the website. For me, feel free to reach out to me on social media. I live a lot on Twitter and LinkedIn. So it's just search for Sandeep Todi on any of these social platforms and you'll find me there.
Excellent. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate you taking the time today, Sandeep. And for those of you who are listening and enjoy this episode, head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca. That's where you're going to find all of our archives and, of course, on all of the major podcasting platforms as well. So if you happen to be an entrepreneur who has an interesting story as well that you want to share, there's also an application form on the website too at the same URL, and you could be a future guest on Amplify Your Business. And until next time, I guess, everybody have a beautiful, prosperous day. Thanks again, Sandeep.
Thanks for having me.